Chronicle is at its core a program about people, New Englanders of remarkable strength and character.
Meeting and interviewing these exceptional people is truly special for me. Let me show you why.
I am preparing to die, but in my preparing to die, I am living.
We first met Mark Fetch in the mid-1980s and followed his disease over the course of several years. It was a time when the AIDS epidemic gripped the attention of the country, a relatively new disease for which doctors as yet could offer no hope.
I'm so glad to be here, right at this very moment. You know, I may not see, another fall or another winter, and it's almost impossible to describe unless you are feeling it and going through it, this being so thrilled for the moment.
As a boy, Eddie Folger, growing up on a farm in Lancaster, Massachusetts, dreamed of playing for the Boston Red Sox. Eddie was such a natural that after his first tryout, the Sox signed him. But a few weeks before spring training, helping his father bring in the corn crop, Eddie's foot slipped into a shredding machine. He lost his leg in the bizarre accident. Eddie's Major League Baseball career was over before it began. And though he lived, there were years of depression, drinking, and drugs when he wished he hadn't. But Eddie Folger made it back, all the way back. He now coaches kids, including his own 2 sons, and counsels inmates at MCI Lancaster.
I always believed, that I would have made it. But I've also always believed, that that particular day, my life was spared, and that there was something more important for me to do in life. It took me a long time to come to that realization. I think it's much more important today to do what we can do for other people. Unless you've cried, unless you've laughed, unless you've told somebody that you loved them today, you really haven't lived a full day. I always try to remember that.
What happens when the doctor becomes the patient? Marcy Olmsted, M.D., mother of a 9-week-old baby girl and a promising young physician, when she was handed a death sentence, incurable metastatic breast cancer. Marcy went back to work part-time at her clinic in Rhode Island, but as a doctor, she was changed.
Just this morning, a patient said to me on the phone, he said, "You're different than other doctors. You really listen. I feel like you've really listened to me more. I've met so many doctors and nobody has ever listened to me as well as you've listened to me." And, I said, "Thank you. I really appreciate your saying that. And I've been a patient, so I know what it feels like."
Cedric Jennings grew up in one of the toughest, poorest neighborhoods in America, in Washington, D.C. His father, a convicted drug dealer, but his mother, a God-fearing soul who was determined that Cedric would have a better life. Cedric was smart, and he was hungry, both figuratively and literally.
Sometimes I would leave the house with nothing. It would be nothing in the refrigerator, and it'll be empty when I come home. Your mind is saying, you gotta go, you gotta study, and your stomach is saying, you can't because you have no energy, you have no food.
Cedric beat the odds. He made it to the Ivy League, to Brown University, in the fall of 1995. Ron Suskin wrote a book about Cedric.
What it's equivalent to is a kid in Bosnia finding a calculus book on the street and learning calculus. That's what it's equivalent to.
And in his church, they rejoiced over the son who, against all odds, found his own way.
Sandra, come on. Not a girl, Sandra. Poor Sandra.
I will never forget John Baldrich of County Donegal, Ireland. How could I? John was a born philosopher and a natural poet.
Has Sandra been sick at all? Have you had to take care of her?
Never.
Never?
Never. Never. I bought Sandra about 2 years ago.
She seems tame.
Oh, she is. She's a real pet. Sandra's a real pet.
Would you ever consider living anyplace else?
And nowhere else. I like this so well. You go on at night and put on your light and turn on the radio or the telly, and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and a smoke, and you can put your feet up. You're really happy and at ease, contented. I always say you live for a day. Yesterday doesn't matter, tomorrow may never come. It's just today.
Another opportunity now to zip back into the Chronicle archives.
This time we fast forward from the first tentative days of Dr. Eleni Bartsokis.
Tender when I move.
After 20 years of education, for many, this is the first paying job of their life. But the $22,000 salary is secondary to at long last being called a doctor. In 1987, we profiled Eleni Bartsokis, now Dr. Eleni Chadbourne. She was a first-year medical intern at UMass Medical Center in Worcester.
I ended up specializing in internal medicine, and I always wanted to be out in the community. So when I finished my residency training and started working out in the community, I thought, oh, piece of cake.
But then, managed care entered the picture.
And I started to become very frustrated with trying to care for my patients and being evaluated with every referral by someone who had no medical knowledge at all. And you had to really see a lot of patients per unit time, which did not allow, at least for me, to be with my patients the way I felt I needed to be happy.
Dr. Eleni Chadbourne hung up her stethoscope and took a job with a pharmaceutical company. She is now Director of Pharmaceutical Vigilance at Genzyme.
I'm there to review what's happening, make sure that our products, either in clinical trials being studied or that are out in the market, are safe.
It's our anniversary.
1982. A fine vintage in Bordeaux. 20 years ago, this bottle was worth $30. Today, it's worth over $750. But Chronicle, you're priceless. Congratulations on 20 years of great television.
It's our anniversary.